Welcome everybody to the podcast. We have Michael Kummer with us. I found Mike on Instagram. Mike, is it Mike or Michael? Sorry, I'll get that right first.
Either way, really. I mean, some
All
people
right.
call me Michael, so
All right,
your
Michael.
choice.
He's a husband, he's a father, he's a biohacker and a blogger. He reviews products, got an awesome YouTube channel. He born in Austria, was a 100-meter professional sprinter, two-time national champion, which is incredible. Loves technology, all things Apple. He has been blogging for over a decade and has over 2 million page views per year on his site. Is the owner of MK Supplements. Uh, Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Darren. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. I wanted to start off just. I'd love to hear a bit about your background and your story. I found it super interesting, your sprinty background and your yeah, I'd love to hear kind of how you came about that and how you came to the States. And I'm Canadian. I'm not in the States, so I'm not American, but I'd love to hear kind of a bit of your story.
I was about to say when you said about, I'm like, that sounds Canadian. Yeah, well, I got into track and field in high school. Actually, my PE teacher encouraged us, a buddy of mine actually, and both of us, since ended up being sprinters, encouraged us to try out track and field, and we stuck with it. I didn't have any talent whatsoever, to be quite honest. I'm not the most. I'm physically challenged in many ways, had eye coordination way off and everything, but I kind of figured out how to run straight relatively fast, fortunately, thanks to my coach, I guess. And the funny thing is, at the time I knew nothing about what it means to fuel my body, what it means to, or the importance of sleep, none of that. So I was just, doing whatever. I mean, I was taking my workout seriously, obviously, but beyond that, I remember times we went to the movie theaters. We went to McDonald's before. Loaded up on 10 cheeseburgers. And a gallon of iced tea. Not the diet one, the regular one with probably 150 grams of sugar or so. And we would have that all the time, and it's somehow it kind of seemed to work to a degree. But then now thinking back, like 20 something years later, now that I'm stronger than I used to be in my early 20s, I'm, fitter and obviously healthy. I'm like, man, I wish I would have known what I know now. Maybe I could have, you know, gotten even better at the time. But what you gotta do? But the bottom line is, I guess when you're young, you can compensate for many things. But as you grow older, you realize that, or I realized that, that lifestyle that I had was unsustainable. Had, irritable bowel syndrome for decades, gut issues all the time, was sick all the time, and once I stopped working out, my body composition changed, and I didn't really like that. And at some point, I figured out, well, it's not about exercising. You can't out exercise, a bad diet or bad lifestyle and poor sleep. There is more to it than just moving and burning calories. And that's when I actually, thanks to a buddy of mine who introduced me to the paleo diet many, many years ago. And that was for me like a culture shock. I'm like, what do you mean? That's what you eat. That doesn't sound like what everyone else is eating. And from that point, I got really intrigued with how our modern lifestyle influences our health and well-being, mostly in a negative way. And we started doing, when I met my wife, then we started doing everything differently, everything almost exactly opposite of what everyone else is doing. And it turned out, well, this is really good for us. We are happier, we sleep better, we are healthier, we are fitter, and all of those things. And I'm like, that should not be possible. The older you get, the sicker, the more fragile, the weaker you're supposed to get. But in our case, it's the exact opposite. I'm like, well, maybe, our modern life isn't so great after all. We have to a degree, or in some areas, go back to the basics. And maybe, and it's funny you mentioned, I'm a technologist. I love Apple and all things Apple. I actually, every year, I love technology a little bit less, because I figured out that, well, technology can be great, but what about the downs? What about all the EMF exposure? What about yes, it's convenient to have a house equipped, a smart house that you can control by your voice, but what about all the radiation? Especially when you sleep. And so we've actually been going back on our technology endeavor and have started removing light switches and going back to, using candles instead of, regular light at night or electricity, just because it's better for our health.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, it's better for your sleep cycle and your circadian rhythm and all and those things as well, not just the
Yeah.
EMF exposure. But that's
Yeah.
interesting because I wanted to talk to you about the Apple and the EMF. It's on my list here of things because
Mhm.
I saw on your site you have like stickers that you put on your AirPods. Do you use little like
Uh-huh.
EMF? So I used to think the EMF thing was my wife was all about it. I'm like, there's well, like it's everywhere. It's got to be fine, right? Like they wouldn't let
Right.
us they
Yeah.
wouldn't let us use this stuff and put it in our
Yeah.
pockets if it was going to harm
Uh,
us. They've done research, and the more I
right.
dig into it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's something to be said about when my kids are on screens like late at night or it's
Uh-huh.
if something's been in their room. So I can notice a difference in my kids. I don't see it in myself all the time, but
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So, what are some of
Right.
the things that you
Yeah.
do? I mean, you mentioned it. What are some of the things that you do to mitigate EMF exposure?
We've basically removed most, or at least in our bedrooms, all of the smart devices. So no more light switches that we can control with Siri. Phones. My phone is in the office at night, and in airplane mode. Everything that if I wear something that I think is useful or outweighs the cons, then I switch it to airplane mode as well. And I have an EMF blocking blanket, so at least up until here, I'm covered. And no lights, tape everything off or turn it off, whatever is convenient and feasible. But just trying to get back to especially at night, to a dark and technology free, environment. Turn off the lights at night, even if it's not in the bedroom, wear, EMF blocking glasses if need be. I mean, you cannot, I guess, based on our modern lifestyle, we cannot just live, without light, only with candlelight. Real beeswax candles are super expensive. And I don't want to burn the stuff that, puts endocrine disrupting chemicals into the air. So you kind of, have to balance it out. What's the lesser evil? So, EMF blocking glasses, can come in handy. I've actually here, um, something like this, EMF blocking hat, if needs be, or even t-shirts, that I have that I use not every day, but when I know that I'm exposed, to more EMFs, maybe when I know that I'm all day in the office, whereas on most days I spend, outside working on the homestead, building stuff. And so I'm not all the time in front of electronics, but just, trying to go back to an environment that, humans have evolved in over millions of years and get a little bit away from all the modern stuff that's convenient for sure, but all of that has a downside. All of that has a dark side, and you just have to know what the dark side is and what you think your body can handle. I mean, humans are robust, otherwise we wouldn't be here anymore. So it's not that everything is evil and you can have nothing, but you have to understand, how your body is reacting, and you have to be in tune enough to figure out, okay, when it's, enough, when you have to take a step back or maybe remove some things from your environment.
Right. No, totally. That's great advice. I'd love to. At the end, I want to ask some of the products that you use because I'll save that
Yeah.
to the very end because I'd love to
Hmm.
know where people can find the products that you use because you obviously do the research and I always like I don't research as much. I rely on people that I trust. And it's like there's a guy who's done his research. I don't need to research which t-shirts are the best, glasses are the best, hats are the best. It's like someone's done it, and that's the whole reason why. That's what you do. A lot of what you do, you review products for people so that it gives them the information, right? So
Yeah, I still encourage everyone, to do their own research, because I can be wrong about something, and and I know I'm doing it, at least, as far as I'm concerned, I'm always trying to do it to the best of my abilities. We all have certain agendas, we all have, conflicts of interest, but I try to do it in the most transparent, way possible. If I have an affiliate relationship, I tell people about it.
right.
But there are many cases we have seen in the, especially the recent past, that you trust someone and it turns out that that person has been not telling the entire truth or has omitted certain things that maybe you should have known. So I still encourage everyone to do their own research, to the extent possible. Obviously, I need to trust people. You need to trust people. We all have to trust people, and as long as they don't abuse our trust, that's fine. But don't blindly follow whatever anyone is saying, including me.
For sure, for sure. Um, You mentioned the paleo and into the carnivore diet. I've watched some of the stuff that you do with organs and meat, and I just love to hear a bit about the carnivore journey. I'm on a bit of that journey myself, and I'm for a season I was vegetarian, even vegan for a little bit, and
Hmm.
and then what's really actually changed my mind is as soon as the mainstream media was like, we need to eat fake meat all the time, I'm like, oh no, there's if that's what's being promoted, I'm like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That can't be right.
Yeah.
So about a year ago, I was like, okay, let's start. And then it's like, oh, maybe this is the way. And I feel way better, way more
Hmm.
energy, way less bloating,
Yeah.
way less irritable
Yeah.
bowels. So it's,
Hmm.
I mean, the for me, the proof is experimenting on myself, and I think
Yeah.
everyone's different. I'm never gonna say one size fits all. Do this. This is for you. But from my experience and from what I've seen from you, I'd just love to hear your kind of your maybe your journey and your thoughts on the carnivore more the
Hmm.
carnivore diet and eating organs because
Yeah.
I haven't got to the organs yet. I want to try it.
Mm.
I do the desiccated the liver
Uh-huh.
right now, but I haven't done the
Yeah.
raw. So
Yeah, yeah, I think nutrition is very, very nuanced, and there is a lot of, black or white thinking, out there. I used to be convinced that at some point that, paleo is the ultimate diet, then it was keto, then it was carnivore, then it was, animal based, and now I realize, you know, everyone is a little bit different, of course, but I think there are like broad strokes of or a framework of what you should follow to have optimal or to maintain optimal health. And I think that, generally speaking, the experiment, whether or not humans are vegetarians or plant-based or meat-based, evolution has made the decision for us. The plant eaters, are dead now, and the meat eaters, survived. And you know, making the switch from first, hunters and gatherers to scavengers to well, no, from gatherers and plant eaters predominantly to scavengers, where we got some of the meat, that other predators left behind, to the switch then to becoming hunters and predators and having first access to the fat and the organs of the animal. That has had a huge impact on human evolution in terms of brain size, in terms of stature and everything. So I think it's pretty clear that we are maybe not, well, probably not 100% carnivores, but very much meat leaning omnivores, And just based on the nutritional profile, there is no doubt that you can get everything that you need to thrive by eating only animals. You don't need anything else. Now, does it mean you cannot have anything else? No, of course not. I had a talk with Dr. Bill Schindler not too long ago, and he very much explained that humans have invented technology to mitigate some of the issues in plant foods. So it's not only about what we eat, but how we eat it. So that means, depending on your genetic makeup, on your metabolic health, and a ton of other factors for sure, you can get away with eating certain plants. So there are some that are just not advisable to eat, period. Leafy greens like oxalates, there is no way to mitigate oxalates. That doesn't mean that any leaf of spinach is going to kill you, but it has a negative impact. To what degree depends on, how your body is working and how far at the limit you already are in terms of trying to get rid of toxins. If you already do a lot of things wrong and then you add in your green juice, it's probably gonna not kill you, but make you very, very unhealthy or uncomfortable. But the point really is, I think you need to figure out, okay, how metabolically healthy are you, and what is it that you can get away with by applying the proper techniques to mitigate many of the toxins that are found in all plants to varying degrees. So, I'm not saying you cannot have any plants whatsoever. You have to be a strict carnivore and eat nothing but meat. I don't think that's the case, and I don't think most people would thrive on that because certainly we have evolved to a degree. I know that I thrive if I include some carbs, be it from raw honey that we get from our backyard, or whatever, fruits, sweet fruits, whatever. But I do better, especially based on the type of physical activity that I do. CrossFit, kickboxing, and stuff. I deplete my glycogen stores every day. Just relying on gluconeogenesis, to replenish those glycogen stores is not super effective and efficient. And I don't feel great while I'm low on glucose, while my body is trying to make it, from protein.
right.
So by adding the carbs into my diet, I feel better and I don't see the downside of it. But, again, with most plants, you have to know how toxic they are generally and as far as your physiology is concerned, and then find ways to maybe mitigate some of that and see if you can get away with it. Again, you don't have to eat plants to thrive. You don't need anything that's in plants, as far as I'm concerned, but you can eat certain plants, based on their toxicity and based on your individual makeup. And you have to figure out what those plants are. I have a guide, that kind of talks about the ones that are probably better for you and probably not so good for you. But even within those, there are some that are sensitive to strawberries, even though they are generally fine to eat. So, if you're sensitive, don't eat them. And that's something you have to, I guess, figure out instead of just following some dogma that says, oh, you have to eat only this or only that. There is certainly a middle ground, but there is a clear framework, towards, what direction you should be heading, and it's not the plant direction, I think.
And for someone who's looking to do, I think this is a societal issue, but for someone who's looking to maybe transition into maybe just healthier eating in general, eating less processed foods, all those things, I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people, they don't give it the runway that it needs to see if it works for them, right? Meaning they give it 2 weeks and they're like, I don't know, I didn't see much of a difference. From your, I mean, you're well versed in the diet in this industry. How long would you say if someone's looking to make a switch into more of a carnivore diet or eat less processed foods? What would you say that person? How much time they need to give that? Is it a month? Is it 6 weeks from your perspective? Is it 4 months?
Yeah, I would definitely give it a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, because if you've been following a bad diet for decades, I mean, some of the damage you cannot undo in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. There are also some issues in as far as stored toxins are concerned that are stored in fat, tissue that might take months to for you to get rid of. And the funny thing also is, there are a lot of plant-based eaters that say, oh, they started plant-based and they feel great, because whatever you wanted something to feel, you probably feel it. If
Mm-hmm.
you believe something is good for you, then it probably feels good for you for a while until you realize that it's actually not good for you and that you're not feeling that great. So you have to kind of overcome, you have to give your body enough time to really adjust. With any dietary change, you might feel GI upset or get diarrhea or constipation, or whatever the case might be. So you definitely have to get over that initial hump to allow your body to adjust, and that might take a few weeks. Maybe for a few, it's only, for a couple of people, it's only a few days, but I would give it a few weeks and then also give it enough time to get over the initial excitement of believing that what you're doing is good. Get to a point where, like, okay, now I can, without emotion, judge, am I feeling good or am I not feeling good? And maybe for some people, it helps to, track certain biomarkers, get your blood
Mm-hmm.
work done every, 3 months or so and see how that changes. I'm not necessarily, proposing to, step on a scale every day or track your calories or, any of that crazy stuff that's unsustainable in the long run. But, for a while, maybe, wear a sleep tracker and see, how your sleep changes. Pay attention to how quickly you fall asleep, how you feel when you wake up, how you feel after a workout, how you feel, in the middle of the afternoon, those kind of things, write that down, keep a journal, and really try to objectively measure how what you do impacts how you feel. And usually at some point you will figure out, okay, this is much better than I used to than what I had before. And the other, nuance to that is, I think, if you tell someone, hey, if you make those changes, you're gonna feel better. That person might say, well, but I feel good. I thought I felt good for most of my life until I realized that how I felt was feeling. I felt like shit. I just, it wasn't my normal, and so I thought that's how you mean what it means to feel good. So give it some time and reflect, write down, journal, and you'll figure out that cutting out, processed foods, seed oils, most plants, is probably going to make you feel better, especially your GI. I think you can very easily tell, do you feel bloated? Do you have a lot of gas? Do you feel, whatever? And if you don't feel it anymore, I mean, there is the proof.
Yeah. Two things that you said there. I mean, keeping a journal and keeping track. I mean, how else can you objectively? I mean, you look back 3 months and you're like, I don't know, do I feel better? Like that's very tough. But if you can look back and
Uh,
see like on the days how you felt, and then I think I've been pounding this drum for years as far as getting blood work done. I find it because a lot of places you have to pay for it or you have to pay to
yeah.
get appropriate blood work done. And I see like you'll go and spend $80 on an oil change for your car if it needs brakes or get brake. Like people will spend this money on a vehicle that's going to last them 10 or 15 years, if that. And that their bodies that they have their whole life, they're like, well, I don't want to get blood work. Like I got to
Yeah,
pay for that. And it's one of those things where it's like if you can, that's where you're going to catch things and see if you get blood work done every three. Like I try and do it every 6 to 8 months. I try and get my blood work done, just so that I have a record, so that you don't know where your baseline is if you don't know what you don't know. So I
yeah,
love that. I love that you
yeah,
said that to get your blood work done, because I don't think enough people are. And it's so easy now because you have your own portal. Like I can just go pull it up on the computer and I can look at each one.
yeah,
I can compare them myself. I can do whatever I want with them, right? So it's not like,
yeah,
yeah, I love that. Awesome. I want to switch gears real quick, and I want
yeah.
to try and I mean this. I love this. I can't believe how much time's passed. So two more things I want to cover with you if we got time, and one is
Yeah.
sauna. So I love saunas. I know you do too. I've been getting a bunch of questions recently about people looking to get saunas in infrared versus traditional. I think you have
Mhm.
both.
Yeah.
Uh, what would your take? I know there's benefits to both. As far as someone who's only going to get one sauna, I'd be interested in your opinion on infrared versus traditional.
Yeah, I think one of the major decision points is, where you're going to put the sauna. Is it going to be on the inside or on the outside? If it's on the outside, the moisture produced by a traditional steam sauna is much less of an issue because you just open the door and let it vent out and you're good to go, right? With the infrared, there's much less moisture. So if you have it on the inside and if ventilation is a potential issue, then, that probably makes the case for an infrared sauna. Then what benefits do you want to get out of it? If it's just the heat stress, you can get that from either one. If it's if you have like cosmetic aspirations like collagen production in your skin, wrinkles, what have you, then a full spectrum infrared might be the way to go because you get those benefits and you won't get them from the steam sauna. Also, how with a steam sauna, you have higher heat, and
Right.
sometimes that burns on your ears, in your lungs, in your nose, etc. Not everyone appreciates that. With the infrared sauna, you don't get that high heat on your skin, but you get more heat inside of your body. So it sucks in a different way, which for many people you could argue is more bearable than having 200 degrees on your skin, burn your skin. So from an electricity perspective, infrared takes less because it uses LEDs that require less energy, and I know that, and I wouldn't usually even think about that because neither one is going to break the bank. If you can afford a five, six, $7,000 sauna cabin, you probably can afford, the difference between 30 and $50 a month in electricity is probably going to be negligible. But since we have solar panels on our roof and I monitor, how much power we draw versus, how much goes into our batteries, I've noticed that our steam sauna, which uses electricity and electric oven, draws about 9 kilowatt hours, versus our infrared only draws 2.
Okay. So
So if our panels only make or produce 11 kilowatt hours, so if I'm in the steam sauna, almost all of the energy goes into the sauna. So, you know, not a big deal, but something maybe, to consider if you use solar and if you rely on, if you don't want to use the grid at all.
right.
Unless you go with a wood oven, but then you have the hassle of firing it up, waiting until it's hot. There are other disadvantages. So it really depends. I think it's a little bit easier and less maintenance intense is the infrared because you go in, you turn it on, you don't have to pour water over, hot stones or whatever. You just sit there and and then you get out and nothing is terribly wet and moist. With the steam, it's of course a classic experience. Some people love it, that you have, you're soaking sweat, not only from the sweat, but from the moisture in the air. And, you pour, and you do all of those things, it's like a ritual, many people appreciate it. And the only reason why they get a sauna is for that.
Right.
So for those, I wouldn't recommend an infrared because it's not the same experience. But
Um,
at the end of the day, I think as long as you get a sauna, expose yourself to heat stress, whatever makes more sense for your environment and for your budget, you get benefits, from either one, I'd say.
I I went down the rabbit hole of that, and we had an infrared. We're in a stage of life where we actually don't have a sauna right now, but we had an infrared sauna previous to this. And what's your take? I know you probably have recommendations as far as which saunas, because I went down the like Costco brand is like the VOCs are through the roof on those. What's your recommendation as far as either a brand or what to look for so that you minimize, because I think the Costco one's literally like chipboard and glue, and like you're breathing, you're basically
Yeah,
huffing glue while you're sitting in a sauna.
yeah.
No knock on Costco as a whole, but I think for health wise,
Yeah,
VOCs
I
is
love Costco, but not for saunas.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are three downsides of going with an inexpensive one, regardless of if you buy it at Costco or somewhere else. One is the VOCs, obviously from the glues and the stain or the wood, etc. The other one is the emissivity of the panels. Like
Right.
a friend of mine actually just reached out to me not too long ago and said, "Hey, I want to buy this sauna, this infrared sauna from Costco. What do you think?" And the emissivity of their panels was like 86%. That's akin to an infrared sauna blanket. Whereas I mean, not to drop any names, but we use Sunlighten, but there are other brands, that are good as well. But the Sunlighten one has emissivity of 95 to 99%. So almost all of the energy, you actually get into your tissue, all of the infrared radiation. And then the third one is um, the EMFs, obviously,
Right.
it's an electronic device. It produces EMFs, and you want to get a model that has low EMFs, and so those are the three, I think, main factors beyond, any warranty issues or, build quality or whatever the case might be. But from a health perspective, those are the three that I look out for. And the usually the cheap ones that are like a third of the price are not good enough as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Agreed. So that's great. I mean, those three tips. That's for people looking to buy a sauna. I think that's super helpful. You do in a sauna, no matter what type, you get what you pay for. Generally, like most things in life, right? So if you
Yeah.
want a cheap one, it's not gonna give you the same benefits, and it might actually hurt you a little bit. So awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably, build your own,
Right.
steam sauna, but just buy the oven. Usually, most sauna brands, the oven is a third party anyway. Like in ours, we have a steam sauna from Redwood Outdoors, but the oven is from Scandinavian brand. Don't
Yeah.
remember the name. So you can get the oven separately and build it your own if you're, handy.
Yeah. Totally.
Save some
Yeah.
money there.
Yeah, for sure. And there's lots of videos on. I've kind of gone down that road. There's lots of videos online to help you out with that. So. And
Yeah.
then the last thing I want to talk to you about is the cold exposure and what you do for cold exposure and just your take on getting cold.
Yeah, I think, just generally speaking, you have to be uncomfortable. Being comfortable all the time is making you weak, is making us weak. And so, be it cold exposure, heat exposure, exercise, all of those hormetic stressors, I think are good for you. Cold in particular, I like because I never liked being cold. I was, cold feet and all my life. And then like, the thought of intentionally submerging yourself in really, really cold water and staying there for 2 to 15 minutes, just didn't seem to make any sense. But since I started doing this, it's been an absolute game changer in terms of my resilience, my how I perceive cold, and just the ability to better manage stress or to better manage my fight or flight response, because that's the first thing that kicks in when you get into a cold tub. You want to get out because your brain tells you you're going to die. And so by being able to controlling that with breathing or whatever methods, for me it's typically breathing exercises, has been an absolute game changer. I don't feel as cold anymore. I feel I'm perfectly comfortable being out in the cold without a shirt or whatever, and without feeling like I'm falling apart. Obviously, from an immune system perspective, when you get into the cold, when you stay there for a while, body releases cold shock proteins, much like it releases heat shock proteins when
Mm-hmm.
you're under heat stress. That boosts your immune system and just makes you overall significantly more resilient. And that's going to help you, I think, in every aspect of your life, be it with stress management, be it, when you're getting sick or about to get sick. I think it's just get cold, start with a cold shower. If you have nothing else, shower cold and not necessarily, go in, shower hot and then, slowly turn it, to cold. I mean, that's maybe in the beginning, but then turn it cold and get right in. That initial shock, it only takes like maybe a tenth of a second, but being able to stay cool and keep breathing while you experience that is going to help you, everywhere.
It's as much for the. I mean, I find it's as much for the mental game as it is for the physical. Like there are lots of
Yes.
physical dopamine release, brown fat activation,
Yeah.
there's all these things that Huberman and Soberg and all these things are going to tell you, and they are all true. And the fact that you do
Yeah.
something every day or whatever however often but the fact that you do something that you definitely know you don't want to do, I
Yeah.
think it just helps build these neural pathways that say like, yeah, when my mind tells my body to do something, then I do it, right? It's probably
Yeah.
translates into getting your workouts in and doing the workouts that you should do,
Yeah.
eating the right things. It's like, I know I don't want to, but I do the things that are healthy for me because I've shown it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's healthy.
It
Oh,
builds discipline for sure.
yeah. You mentioned your breathing in the cold. What do you do? Do you do box breathing or do you do some form of like retention or
I usually do some sort of retention breathing, so I try to exhale or inhale first, as slowly as I can, typically on a count of 8 or so, then hold it for the same. So it's a retention and box breathing kind of combination. Then exhale, same count, and hold, on an empty lung, same count. And I've noticed that has two things that this type of breathing for me at least triggers. One is I calm down because I focus only on my breathing and not none of the noise that tells me to get out. And B, I notice that, within a few breaths, my 3 minutes or whatever it is are over. Because, if you breathe
yeah,
so slowly, 8, 8, 8, 8, I mean, at 32 seconds, that's like half a
yeah,
minute with one breath.
yeah,
And then you do this 6 times and you're done. So I kind of count to six in my head, and I know that at six, I'm done. And six is nothing. Everyone can count to six.
right. Yeah, that's interesting, right? And with breath work, it's like, so you're accomplishing some great breath work. You're doing something that's mentally challenging that you're overcoming. You're doing something that's physically beneficial and beneficial for all the neurochemicals
Hmm.
that are going on. And you're doing a meditation, and it's done in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Your return on investment
Yeah.
is absolutely massive for getting in the cold.
It's huge.
It's
Yeah.
huge. Oh, I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Lastly, I'd like to just give you a chance to. I know you have MK supplements. I know I didn't bring you on you because to sell your stuff, but I know you have things that are for sale, and I know you have things that are valuable, and where people can find you, and yeah, all the things that you have going on. I'd love to hear what you're doing these days, and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I mean, physically they can find me usually in my backyard. Building, we just finished a rabbit housing. We are having meat rabbits now, so we can make some of our own meat. I'm building right now a second hen house. We'll be getting 20 more chickens soon. But digitally, michaelkummer.com, my blog is where I, publish most of my stuff. I have a YouTube channel as well under my name. MK Supplements is my, well, supplements brand, as the name already implies. And there we do organ freeze-dried organ meat supplements of the highest quality. Nothing better than the highest quality products already out there, but with a little bit of a different spin, like only glass bottles and metal lids, no plastic, and 45 days supply instead of 30. The reason why I can do this is because, obviously my profit margin is smaller than that of someone else, but because it's a side business for me, I can afford doing that and provide a little bit more value, in combination with my written content and all the digital stuff that I publish. And so, that's what we do. If you don't, much like you, not into eating fresh, doesn't have to be raw necessarily, but fresh organ meat, then, the capsules are an easy way to, you know, I'm
Mhm.
not discouraging anyone from trying fresh organs, doesn't have to be every day, but at least maybe once a week or so. But if that doesn't, work, or you don't have it as much as you want to, freeze dry desiccated, is the best way to go. The kids, do it. They don't taste anything, and it's just an easy way to, bridge any gaps that you might have from a micronutrients perspective. Don't expect like wonders that you're turning into Superman or whatever. At the end of the day, organs are nothing more than a multivitamin. They're rich in bioavailable and readily absorbable nutrients, be it peptides, vitamins, minerals, etc. That's all it is. If you're deficient, like in iron or B12, you might feel a boost in energy. If you're already well topped off like I am, I don't feel a huge difference. I'm going to take them anyway because I don't know what I might be missing, considering that our modern foods might not be as nutritious anymore as they, used to be. And so that's really all it is. It's, multivitamin and very good quality. I think it's, family owned business. We take care of our customers and our product, and
Thank you.
that's how we do it.
I really appreciate that caveat. because I think everyone's not a snake oil salesman, but everyone's, promoting that. And I really, really appreciate that. It's like, there's no magic pill that's going to make you healthy. It's a
No,
combination of, it's sunlight, it's water, it's get your vitamins, it's eat your meat, high protein, do those things, and a combination of all those things is going to make you feel better. But if you just do, like, if all you do is drink water, and like enough water that you should, and mineralize it, and still eat processed food, like, you're not going to feel any better. So it's the totality of all of it. And
right,
I love
right,
that message of, I love your message. I think that's super helpful for people to understand that it's going to take
yeah,
the continuation of doing all the right things. So thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. I
Um,
think I'm gonna get a T-shirt that liver is not gonna turn you into a king.
I wasn't wondering who
Pun
you were.
intended.
I wasn't wondering who you were talking about earlier. I was quite aware. So yeah, no, it's no, but Michael. You're for like. Thank you very much. You're a breath of fresh air when it comes to that industry, and promoting healthy living. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I
Thanks for
appreciate,
having me.
yeah, and all the best in the future. I hope we can do this again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Aaron.